Okay, so we are live on both LinkedIn and now on YouTube. And hello to everybody that is here. I am so excited for this episode. Having spoken to Dave the other day about this, there's so much that we're going to cover. Okay, turn that off. So I'm so excited to do this. I've seen so many conversations on LinkedIn, so many posts come up about referrals, how you can generate partnerships and referrals from existing clients, but also from your network. So this is a topic that I know is really topical right now and how you can build strategies around that. So with no further ado, I will let you, Dave, introduce yourself, your story. Why partnerships, why collaboration, and what led you to referrals, basically?
Okay, so first off, I would say why not? Like connection is at the heart of everything that we do, right? As human beings, like that belonging, that connection piece is actually the most natural way to be.
Yeah.
And collaborations and partnerships and word of mouth and referrals all build into that. It's just for whatever reason, it's not the thing. It's the thing that we do all know naturally and we do organically, but for whatever reason, it's not why. It's not one of the things that people put proper strategy behind, which is absolutely my passion subject. But yeah, hi, I'm Dave. First of all, football, music, lover of things. As you can see behind me, got 9, 7, and 1-year-old, so busy at home. I've got a background in business membership, so ran a chamber of commerce, and then ran my own membership organisation. Grew that to a couple of thousand members, so that's almost entirely through referrals and partnerships. That then morphed into a benefit business where we acted as the SME engagement point for some pretty major brands, people like Regis and Volvo and Yell, and a bunch of insurance providers and payment providers. They've been on the other end of lots of other people's partner programs, and then got very miserable running that business just before COVID actually, and decided to set up Collaboration Junkie because I was just amazed at how few people there were out there kind of helping people with this stuff. And for most business owners, and particularly most agencies I speak to, word of mouth and referrals, it's what most people rely on, right? No matter whatever else they do. But as I said before, it's probably the area of their business that they put the least amount of proper thought and strategy behind. So that's why. And it's just a more fun way to work better, right? And life should be fun. So
Exactly. Why do you think, in your perspective, I mean, this is diving really deep into it, why do you think that businesses don't put as much of an effort on referrals or having a strategy behind it?
Because it does happen organically. So first and foremost, but if something just happens anyway, then people aren't always as likely to maybe invest in outside resource to do it. But we could all build our own websites. It doesn't mean that we should, right? And I think sometimes as well as people can get a little bit concerned. I call it the ick. You've seen me speak before.
Yeah.
I talk about the ick factor that people get sometimes by actually asking for referrals. And I think people can sometimes feel that if they suddenly put proper strategy behind it, then it turns it away from something friendly and organic to something really forced and salesy. And it's not about that at all. It's about just being more intentional, because if we're intentional about who we ask and what we ask for, we're more likely to get the results that we want. I also think people and I hear this a lot actually, and again, especially from agencies, more than other brands I speak to, that they're frightened that by asking clients for referrals, especially rather than partners, but if asking clients for referrals, that will push the clients away, that they'll resent them in some way or feel that they're not enough. And actually, I'd suggest that the opposite is true, because if a client gives you an introduction, it's the ultimate sign of trust, because they're entrusting you, they're putting their reputation on the line. So I'd argue that it actually brings your clients closer to you, because they become more a part of your growth and more a part of what you do. So, which kind of tying into that kind of the customer success piece, right? Actually, I think it's a complete circle, that by delivering more success to your customers, they're more likely to want to refer you. And then in the act of referring you, you're actually drawing them even closer into you, and so it helps with retention and all this other wonderful stuff. But yeah, I think they're the main reasons people just feel a bit uncomfortable about it and don't realize there's a way to be structured but still natural, I think.
Yeah, and you're completely right, because I hear so many clients of mine, but also connections, where they talk about referrals, where they just feel uncomfortable or feel really sleazy actually making introductions, but they also feel like, well, I've asked for referrals before, but no one's given me them. And there's a couple of things that you mentioned there that I want to touch on, but one is a really round obviously, before we dive into the whole mindset thing behind referrals, I want to dive into this, and you hear it a lot, is that referrals can only get you so far in business. Referrals are a point when they're great when you start out, but there's a point then you have to go beyond that and go into a cold audience or a cold network. I mean, what are your thoughts on that as someone that does referrals?
So I'm biased.
I think I already answered to this one.
But I think it's a marketing myth. It's a complete marketing myth. What I would say is word of mouth introduction can only get you so far if you leave your strategy to chance, right? Or organic, as some people might want to call it. If you're just leaving it to chance, then yeah, it's only going to get you so far, right? And I would never say that you shouldn't do all the other brilliant bits of marketing around the edge, because whether you're looking for introductions into bigger businesses directly, or whether you're looking to start working in partnership with people that can refer you consistently, you still need to have that broader brand presence if you want to build trust. So you absolutely can use it to scale your business. And in fact, particularly partnerships are an ideal way to break into new markets or new sectors, leveraging against your previous credibility. You just have to do it in a more structured way. I speak to so many people where I'll speak to a founder and they've grown to a certain point by word of mouth, but it's all been reliant on them, and they've got really twitchy about it. They're worried about scaling, so they spend all this money on all these different other avenues, and yet they're still reliant largely for their work coming in through word of mouth. And it's the one bit they haven't kind of put a strategy behind. And the other thing you can do, I suppose, other than partnerships, is I talk about building cultures of referrals, Bella. So it doesn't have to be founder-led or just a couple of key people in the sales team. Actually, anyone stakeholder-facing should be alert for and ready and willing to make referrals, which again ties in with the work that you do around customer success. Actually, anyone that's involved in that journey is ideally placed to kind of be open and ready for introductions, and that moves it from being founder-led to brand-led, and they're two very different places in terms of the scale that can be achieved.
How can someone go from founder-led to brand-led, in essence? Because I'm sure it's like, how do I identify as a founder the right people in my agency or in my business to be able to support with that? Because I'm assuming not every key stakeholder that's client facing is probably open to doing that. I mean, how do you navigate that?
Okay, so more of them will be than you anticipate if you give them the right skills. You may think that's easy for me to say, but I did a session with a firm of accountants the other week. So it's a firm of 11 accountants, and 10 out of the 11 ended up pretty excited at the end of kind of the piece together. So if you give people the right support and the right skills, then potentially they will do it. Obviously, some are much more naturally predisposed to be doing this stuff, though, without a shadow of a doubt. But I would say it's anyone who just naturally has that kind of they're just good with the customers, right? They're good with your clients. They've got that natural likability. They know how to build rapport. They're going to typically find it easiest to do this stuff. but I wouldn't limit it to those. And then it's about giving people one of two things. Firstly, is the process to be able to do this stuff. That's the first thing, when you move it from something that's organic and happens by chance to, no, we're being more intentional about this, is having a process behind the scenes. Understanding where in the journey you should be asking for, which is something I'd love to chat about actually with you, because it ties in with your work, kind of wow moment. And the other thing is giving them the skills to be able to do it. Give them the training, give them the support, so that if they are a bit nervous, they are a bit icky, they can come through that, because nothing gets people doing it more often like them starting to do it. And much like it brings your customers closer to your brand when you're asking them, if you've got if your team is actively asking for referrals and getting them and helping you grow the business, well, that brings your employees closer to the brand as well. So it's a powerful place to be.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it puts a lot of that pressure off you as a founder to be bringing in all the clients, because I know from a lot of founders that I work with, actually their goal is to take a step back. And if their goal is to take a step back, but new business is probably mainly what they're working on at this point, but if they then can't actually do that at any point, because if without them, they would fall stagnant, they wouldn't be able to go anywhere. That's pushing towards this brand-led culture of referrals is essential and can help them grow beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I think the other thing is, if where it is referral based, if there's someone else in the team that's brought that business in through introduction, well, then that business that's been brought in, they're going to be less attached to the founder. Like if the founder's the one bringing all the business in through introductions and referrals, then by definition, they're the first port of call. They're seen as the person that's got a level of ownership, and so, as you say, it becomes harder and harder for the person to extract themselves. So that moving it to brand level works on multiple levels in terms of the founders being able to step away and be a bit more strategic.
Yeah. And how does that benefit team members? Because obviously getting team members involved in this, is there any value for them, whether that's intrinsic or whether it's something that the business can consider around KPIs or incentives for them to be able to refer more? Now, would you recommend that, incentivizing referrals, or is that something, I mean, that's in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, grey area, right? Because it's the same with right. So in terms of benefits, and by the way, people like to belong. So if they're the right people for your brand, then them actively being a part of helping grow it is only going to make them feel closer to the brand and belonging. And in the days where, in the current times, where often the growth of a brand is dependent on how their ability to attract and retain top talent, anything you can do to kind of keep people in is great. When it comes to rewarding referrals, you touched on extrinsic and intrinsic motivation there, Bella, which is something I use a lot. Most people, in fact, are intrinsically motivated and therefore want to refer you just because they know, like, trust you, and they want to do it. So particularly with your clients or your wider audience, if you over incentivize a referral request and go out suggesting everyone's going to get a thing for introducing you, you can turn people off. You can push them away, because they'll go, oh, I was going to introduce you anyway. And so you can almost offend if you only had to ask, right? So you can almost offend their sensibilities by pushing this reward on them. That's not to say you can't reward people and you can't say thank you afterwards, but putting it as an incentive right up front and suggesting that's the reason why someone's going to do it, for the majority of people, won't work. They'll introduce you because they know, like, and trust you. You've asked them in the right way. You've made it easy for them to refer you, and they think they know the person that they're introducing is going to get some value, right? With your employees, that's an interesting one. I think you can almost certainly incentivize that a little bit at the start, probably because you're already in a relationship with them where you're paying them to be there. As much as they may love your brand, they're still an employee. You're still paying them to be there. But that can be done in all sorts of different ways. I know brands where they've done it, and actually what it does is it just builds towards quarterly, half yearly, and annual targets, right? And if those targets are hit, then they get those nice, brilliant, amazing team away days. So it's less about individual reward. It's more about, well, look, doing this stuff, not only is it great, but it means you're more likely to hit these milestones. If the milestones are hit, then we're all off for a big party, right? And so there's ways of incentivizing it without it being sales target led and commission led. And that's the thing. But it's whatever's right for your brand. If you're in an organization where people are commission led, well, then they're more likely to be extrinsically motivated, right? And so it makes sense to add this in with that. But for most brands, it's probably right to do something that's a bit more personal.
Yeah, and I think that mix of both in some circumstances is important, and it's probably going to be slightly more on the intrinsic side versus the kind of incentivizing it, because the more you incentivize it, when those incentives go away, then the motivation's not there. So actually having that mix of both, almost so much more on the intrinsic side, because it should be intrinsic. You should be asking for referrals or want to refer, not because you're paid to refer. And I think that ties nicely, as I speak to a lot of founders that are afraid to ask their clients for referrals for this very reason, is that they feel, and we tie it then back to the almost the ick factor that you mentioned beforehand, is if someone does feel the ick factor, that so much so that they don't want to ask for referrals, what can they do to be able to reframe that to actually ask asking for money, or beyond what the client wants to give?
Yeah, okay, so there's a few things here. The first one is to not think of it as referrals, think of it as introductions. For some people, the word referral just has this sales connotation about it, right? And so quite often I talk about referrals because what everyone knows, but I'll move my language to introductions quite quickly, because actually that's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone to introduce us. And that happens all day, every day, in all walks of life, right? If you want something new to watch on the telly, you'll ask a friend. If you don't ask a friend, there's a whole bit on Netflix or Amazon saying you might like this as well, right? Introductions drive every aspect of our life. And so just that reframe can really help. If people are really nervous about this, I talk about something called the referral staircase, where ask for something small first, right? Maybe there's an event you'd like them to share of yours, or maybe you're not asking for that next big client. Maybe it's a lower level introduction or something. If you're a bit worried, just go, what's the smallest thing I can ask for, so that when someone goes, yeah, of course, you feel a little bit better about yourself, and you can build up. However, we should all just be asking for introductions, because, and this is the thing that I will mention, for most people listening, will be happy to make introductions. There are some people that just don't introduce. It's just the way of the world, but lots of people do. And I think the thing to remember is, when you make an introduction and it goes well, and you hear back from both parties that it went well, we feel good about that, right? We feel good, and it's because most people are nice people. And so there's no reason why, when you're asking someone else for an introduction, they're going to feel good when they make it for you as well. People love to give referrals and make introductions. You've just got to make it easy for them to do so. And so I think being really clear about what you're asking for will help give people a little bit of confidence around positioning that.
Yeah. And I know that you've had a lot of experience with people that don't ask for the right things. And I know my experience that I've gone through probably quite a few referrals and partnerships where there's been no clarity, and there's been a lot of, let's say there are some stories that I could tell around negative referrals that I've received, just because there was no, so much so that the person that referred me to somebody else, they didn't want to be referred. They didn't want to have a conversation with me, so much so that when I then spoke to them, they were so rude. They were like, well, I don't need to talk to you. And it was almost that hostile, as in this person was referring in from the same company in different departments as a sale. Without it being a sale, it was obviously how they've spoken and introduced it behind the scenes. So I mean, what experience do you have with people asking either the right way or the wrong way? I mean, I'm sure you have quite a lot of stories or things that you could tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of pieces here. So in terms of asking in the right way or the wrong way, the right way is you need to ask for an actual introduction, and it needs to be natural. Right, you need to be really natural at how you ask. It should feel like you're asking for a favor from a friend, right? You see some people where they almost take a deep breath before they ask for the referral, right? And that's a surefire way of making it feel icky. But then being really clear about what you're looking at, what type of person you like an introduction to, because you're so right. We've all had if you leave your introducer strategy to chance, well then you're going to get all sorts of people potentially, if you're lucky, giving you making introductions to you. But if they're not the people that you really want to be speaking to, all you're doing then is wasting time. And by the sounds of it, in your instance, not even having a nice conversation. As soon as you're more intentional and you take control of what you're asking for and you're making proactive requests, well, then you're more likely to get the conversations that you have. FOMO can be a real thing with people, that they kind of just, we can't work with anyone. But the trouble is you don't really want to work with anyone. You want to work with a certain set of people. And the minute you're more specific about what you're asking for, less people will say yes right there and then. But the actual quality, what you come out with at the other end, will be much higher. So the top of funnel dopamine hit of people saying, yeah, I can make an introduction, will be lower, but the quality of the introductions you get and the volume will be of the right ones will be much, much higher. So that's either being really specific about a type of business that you'd like an introduction to. It's being really specific about, I call them moments in time and triggers. So it's when you're going through, when your product or service is most crucial for a business owner, for another business owner or individual, what are those people saying when they're out and about? So they might be moaning about the fact that their existing web developer has let them down or taken too long, or they could be talking about something to their accountant. It's not what's written. What they're actually saying is not what's written on your website. So it's kind of turning your pitch and going, well, what are people actually saying? You can be specific that way, but a really powerful one to make sure you get what you want with people that you know well is ask for an introduction to someone that you know they know. That's the easiest way to. That's the easiest way for someone to make an introduction to you, is when you make it so easy by actually saying to them, I know you know so and so. Do you mind making an introduction? Because most people will say yes at that point, as long as you've got a good reason for wanting to be introduced. So being specific really does. Being specific really helps, and being proactive especially helps you not get those introductions that you don't really want.
Yeah, makes 100% sense. I mean, if I can, and I know this full well because I've actually worked with Dave on working on my referrals and how to ask, and it really is game changing to say, I am looking for X. I know that you're connected with so and so on LinkedIn. Would you be able to connect me through? Because either there's a project that I'd like to talk to them about, or I'd love to collaborate with them on something that I'm working on. So there are some really amazing opportunities just by being more specific and asking for people that you know, because ultimately I know that I'd help other people out. And I know that so many people, like you say, everyone is generally, like we say, maybe aside from that guy I spoke to, really nice. So in that instance, why wouldn't they want to refer you? We have had a question drop into the chat, but I'll save those until the end. But if you do have any questions listening live, drop those into the chat. We'll collate them all together. We've got time in a couple more minutes to get some. Dave will answer all of those for you. So if you do have any burning questions, please drop them through. You spoke about process and identifying, you were saying there, those moments in time. Now, how does someone build a process around referrals, or even look like how does referrals fit into our current delivery journey?
Okay, so first of all, it's much easier if someone understands their delivery journey, right? So they've actually got that stuff mapped out. That makes it so much easier, which is where there's lovely synergy between the work that you do, Bella, and I do, right? If someone understands their customer journey and they have that mapped out, then this makes it much easier. And I would class, in this instance, customer journey as from prospect journey all the way through, to be fair, from the minute you have your first touch point. Because I call them wow moments. There are times where your customers are just, you've over delivered, and you can either hear it in their voice or you can read it in their responses to you. And these are the times, these are the flags around when you want to be asking for introductions. You don't necessarily do it, it's not necessarily at the same point for every client, but you'll be aware that maybe there's 4 or 5 points along your journey where you typically get this reaction from people where they're elated. And quite often it's not at project end, which is like the traditional time to ask. I know some people where they get introductions before someone's even a client, either because the discovery calls are so good, or they solve a problem, right? They solve this problem in a unique way, and people are like, oh my God, I've been looking for you all my life, where are you? At that point, they are ready to introduce you to absolutely anyone else who has got that problem. And I'll use when I got my branding done as an example on here. When I got the first draft of it back, that was my wow moment. It was way more than I ever expected it to be. And by the time they then delivered all the assets, it was still great, it was still awesome. But all they'd done at that point was deliver against my way heightened expectations. The real wow moment came at that first reveal. And so I would really encourage someone to make sure you understand your customer processes, and then go along them and go, where's our wow moments? And just try and put some kind of flags in your CRM or your meeting agendas or whatever it is, to just be aware that it might be the right time to ask for an introduction. And just doing that, just asking earlier in the journey, can be an absolute game changer. And one final thing on this that typically does happen at the end is if you're using Net Promoter Score and people give you an 8, 9, or 10, please actually ask them to promote you. The amount of people I work with who send out customer surveys and get Net Promoter Scores, but then don't ever actually ask the people if they would promote them. It just, yeah. So
it's something I completely understand, because it's something that I don't typically like a Net Promoter Score unless you're giving it context and it's tied to how many clients you get through referrals. Now, if you're getting a lot of clients through referrals and your Net Promoter Score is high, makes sense. That's where your clients are coming from. But if your clients are coming through advertising campaigns and you're not getting a single referral, and you've got a really high Net Promoter Score, I'm saying, well, where's the correlation here? There's something that doesn't add up. So from that sense, if you're using that, give it context and make sure that you're allocating that, or let's say analyzing that against what referrals you actually have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Before we jump into questions, and we've got a couple of questions that have come through here. I'm aware of the time, so if anyone needs to jump, I completely thank you so much for joining. If anyone wants to get in touch with you and is looking to work with you, what have you got going on, and how can people reach out?
Awesome. So website's collaborationjunkie.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I share a load of content on there. I run a monthly free workshop. And then in terms of how I actually work with brands, I run a couple of group programs, either on referrals or strategic referral partnerships. And then I do those same 2 pieces. I work one-to-one, or one-to-team, I should say. And that sits somewhere between a coach consultant, Bella. So you've worked with me, So it's very much done with you. Very implementation heavy, and it's about building processes in your systems so that you've got all this behind the scenes, but to your audience, to your partners, or to your clients, it still feels supernatural. So if anyone wants to know more about that, then get in touch via the website or connect with me on LinkedIn. We'd love to chat. So
amazing. So I'm going to jump into some of these questions. So one of them is, how do you define the difference between referral and advocacy?
So it would very much vary on a case-by-case basis, I suppose. But I would say a referral or an introduction is where I have introduced someone to Bella directly, right? That ideally maybe on a joint email or whatever it may be. I would say advocacy would be where I've just mentioned that Bella's great to someone, and then they've phoned Bella up and gone, "Oh, right, yeah, Dave said you were great. I thought I'd get in touch." Right. So advocacy is wonderful. And it's where people are giving you recommendations on LinkedIn, right, or wherever they may be. That kind of just shouting about you and spreading the word, look, it's wonderful. We don't want to knock that. Referrals or an introduction is where it's taken it to the next level. There's a specific contextualized introduction being made that just takes it up that extra notch.
The difference between organic and asking for it, in essence. Yeah, definitely. And one from Jamie: how do you view partners and referrers? Are they separate things, or are they something similar? And I probably know the answer to this one already, but yeah, I'll let you go for it.
Yeah, they are different in my book. A really good look, you could have someone that refers you a couple of times and then they refer you to more and more, and they go, well, you know what, these are going to be an actual partner. So for me, and these are Dave definitions, not dictionary ones, referrals can come from anyone and everyone. They can come from your customers, your wider audience, your friends, your family, your coaches, whoever it may be in your network. And they're great because of that fact that they can come from anyone. With a partner, for me, a strategic referral partner is another individual or a business that has a vested interest in referring your ideal client at the ideal time to buy on a consistent basis. And it's around having a shared end goal for that client. It's not just about a revenue opportunity or anything like that. By the two of you working together, you deliver a better result for the client or the contact overall. And for those partners, you don't necessarily know them already. They might not be in your network. It's a more strategic commercial relationship. That's how I would define them. But I've had people who've started off as referrers, turned into introducers because they refer more frequently, and then we've formalized relationship into a partnership. So one can move into the other, but at its core, I think they're two separate things.
Nice. And Jamie also said, do you get referrals even though you're a United fan?
I think more, because people take pity on me, Jamie, at the moment. So there we go.
I love it. And I have one last question. I know we've run slightly over on time. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, and I try and keep these to half an hour. This is one that I had kind of come in ahead of the session. If I have multiple wow moments and that I've analyzed, how do I identify which is the right time to ask?
Gut feel.
Okay.
Like the thing with me talking about having referral processes is at its absolute core, this is still a personal interaction between two people, right? And so you will know that if, let's say, you've got 5 different wow moments in your business just plucking your number out of the air, you will know what a really big reaction looks like because you've experienced it before, right? And so it's about you using your judgment to go, have they had a real kind of thing there, or was that just all right? Do I think that the next point in the chain is likely to deliver a better result? And it's completely down to you making that judgment call around whether you think now's the right time. And that's it. Now, that said, if there's a massive gap between wow moments, then maybe you try it anyway. But it does come down to gut feel. You can't over systemize this stuff. You can have the processes behind the scenes, but it's still about it feeling personal, feeling like asking for a favor from a friend. And so that comes down to just how you feel about it. And I think that's what's so wonderful about them. In the rise of the digital age that we're in, actually, the personal touch still reigns supreme, and that's what referrals are about. So.
And that was absolutely an incredible ending to the live that we've had. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you guys that were in the chat and kind of asking us questions. If you have any more questions, please drop them through. I will be monitoring the chat afterwards, and Dave will be as well. And I will make sure to tag him in any of the questions that come through if you are watching this back. I will also drop his contact details along with his link for his next masterclass, which is
November the 9th on 5 steps to awesome strategic referral partnerships.
Perfect. So I'll drop all that information in. If you have any further questions, reach out to Dave. If you don't know how to map your experience journey, contact me, and then I'll get you in touch with Dave to make sure that we understand the right times for you to be able to ask for referrals from there. And I'm just so thankful for you joining me, Dave.
Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute delight.
And thank you to everybody else.